Hi, my name is Mayana and today I'm going to be filming and look into the genre for episode 2. I decided last year to start this series where I basically do a deep dive into specific genres or tropes or basically anything that involves books. I really love video essays and I obsess with watching them, so I decided to make my own. Last year I made a video on the rise and the fall of YA dystopians. In this video I'm going to be talking about the death and resurrection of YA paranormal romance. Nathan Zed did the video of the death of YA like monster romances, and I kind of like, I had already had this video planned since my last one. Like I literally had this video planned for a year. Everything was written out, but because my last video didn't do as good as I wanted it to, I felt discouraged. I decided to wait. But I really love these kind of videos. I've been watching like Pretty Little Liars video essays for like the past like week, and I decided to just upload it. Like, even if nobody watches these, I think they're very fun and I enjoy them, and even like my audience who watches them will enjoy them as well. So I just decided to upload it anyways. Nathan Zed did one on monster romances and that one was good. I want to do one more of the perspective of readers, because honestly without books I really don't think we would have any material. Obviously we would have things, but even if you look at like all the shows that are coming out today, most of them are literally just book to movie adaptations and things like that. So I'm going to be focused more on books. Also my channel is focused more on books, so it'll make sense. Let's just get into the video. So I have this video split into 8 sections, not including the intro and the outro. So I'm going to start with book release timeline. Twilight came out in 2005 and it was an ongoing series until 2008. The book has a 3.6 rating out of 5 on Goodreads, which is honestly pretty low. It has 5 million reviews. Beastly came out in 2007. It has a 3.8 out of 5 rating, which is insane that Beastly has a higher rating than Twilight, and it has 175,000 ratings. Vampire Academy, which was going on from 2007 to 2010, has a 4.1 out of 5 rating and it has 606,000 reviews. The Mortal Instruments, which was going on from 2007 to 2014, I'm not going to include like the entire Shadowhunter Chronicles, I'm literally just going to include the Mortal Instruments. That one has a 4.0 rating out of 5 and it has 1 million reviews. Beautiful Creatures came out in 2009. It has a 3.7 rating out of 5, 5,500 reviews. Fallen came out in 2009, has 548 reviews, 48,000 reviews. Drink Slay Love came out in 2011. It has 3.8 out of 5 rating and it has 6,000 reviews. I know you're wondering, Mayana, why the hell did you include this book? Honestly, I have no idea. When I originally did the research, I didn't realize how like much of a flop this book was compared to the other ones. So I'm just gonna include it because I do think it comes into a bigger play later. But like, if you're wondering why, I don't know either. And then we're gonna talk about the movies. Twilight released in November 2008 and it has a 49% on Rotten Tomatoes. Beastly, March 2011, it has a 21% rating, which on Rotten Tomatoes, which I think is very insane considering how it has a 4.1 rating on Goodreads. Vampire Academy released February 2014 and it has 16% on Rotten Tomatoes, which I think is a crime against humanity. City of Bones came out August 2014 as well, and this has a 13% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, which I also think is a crime against humanity. Then we have Fallen that came out in 2016. I don't really have a date. It has a whopping 6% on Rotten Tomatoes. Drink Slay Love came out in 2017 and it has a 33% rating. And now I'm just gonna talk about TV shows briefly, because I think that YA paranormal romances, they aren't just movies, they aren't just books, they aren't just TV shows, they are media as a whole. So I also just want to discuss some TV shows a little bit. So we have Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I didn't do any further research, so I'm just going to be listing off shows, and these are just teen shows. Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and then The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. Charmed, which They were adults in the show, but mainly marketed towards teens from what I can remember. True Blood, which also was not about teenagers, but also marketed towards teenagers, or teenagers were the people who were, well, I won't say it was marketed towards teenagers, but teenagers were heavily watching that show. They have Supernatural, which they were also not teens, but I do believe teenagers were also mostly watching that show. Vampire Diaries, My Baby Sister Vampire, which you're probably like, Mayana, why did you include this? Because I believe My Baby Sister Vampire is the greatest vampire media and all of media there is. I am including the movie and the TV show, and if I had a book, I would include the book as well. And then we have Teen Wolf, which second best, but nothing can beat My Baby Sister Vampire. I am sorry, not sorry, but that show was truly ahead of its time, and we did not deserve that show. Disney Channel did not deserve that show. And then we also have a new release, First Kill. There is more that I'm probably forgetting about or I'm not mentioning, but those are the ones that I just wanted to touch on, just to give the people an idea of what I'm talking about. I'm going to begin with the start of paranormal YA romances. So I could get into things like Dracula being the first piece of media. All know that that's like the actual start of like vampirism and vampire lore, but it's not really YA, so I don't really want to touch on it. But you should definitely check out Shakespeare's video where she talks about the rise and the possible fall of vampires and pop culture. It's a really good video, and she talks about like literally where vampire lore came from and all those things. So if you want to check that out, I definitely recommend that you do. Even though this video is about books, I do want to talk about TV shows. The first paranormal TV show and the research that I did was Sabrina. Now, I could be wrong, but this is just the research that I got. So it is Sabrina the Teenage Witch. Sabrina has been around for a very long time. She first appeared in the Archie comics. In 1962, she appeared in Archie's Madhouse issue 22. You'll also find her own little storyline that she had called Sabrina the Cute Little Witch. And she had her own debut in 1971, which led to the TV show that came out in 1997. 7 months after that, Buffy the Vampire Slayer came out in like September, and then almost a year later, March 1998, Charmed came out. Obviously, Twilight was the start of it all. It all came from the mastermind that is Stephenie Meyer, where it all came to her in a dream, and it was originally a My Chemical Romance fan fiction, which, if you think about it, everything really truly stems from fan fiction. I honestly don't know why people shit talk fan fiction so much. I could do a video essay on fan fiction and how it actually has proven literature, but that is neither here nor there. But it changed so much for girls everywhere, and we all went crazy for the books. I'm sure like this was like the first paranormal, like YA paranormal romance for like most girls. I didn't read Twilight when it first came out. I did watch the movies. My aunt, who's 3 years older than me, she used to love the movies, and like I would like watch it to like make fun of it. But the more I was like, then it started becoming like an annual thing where I would watch it like every time it was on FX, like once a year. And then I realized like, wow, I actually really love this movie. I actually have a really deep love for Twilight. I have read the book. I thought it was like okay. I've only read the first book. I do kind of want to continue on, but it's not a book review. Twilight was the only popular thing that came out until Beastly, the movie at least, which was a Beauty and the Beast retelling. So it didn't get like the same treatment as Twilight. I never read the book, but I did enjoy it. And ironically, our king Alex Pettyfer, who was featured in the last video, which was the rise and the fall of YA dystopians for the movie I Am Number 4. It seems like he has a habit of being in flopped YA movies. Vampire Academy came out next. It wasn't as big as Twilight. The book at least was better received and it had a higher rating, but the movie, however, was not. Personally, I think the movie was camp. I thought the movie was great. I read the first 2 books like 2 years ago, and I actually really liked it, so I do see what the hype was about. It was a lot, now don't call me Twilight girls, but it was kind of better written than Twilight, and it didn't have like the same ideologies as Twilight, like based off of like the Mormon religion and like Stephenie Meyer trying to like force that upon us. Then the Mortal Instruments came out next, and these books did amazing. I mean, as you can see, Cassandra Clare is still writing the Shadowhunter Chronicles to this day, and along with Vampire Diaries, it when it came out, it was very well received from the audience. It had high ratings and it had a movie, but unfortunately the movie flopped. I, however, really love the movie. I remember in high school I used to come home, I used to watch this movie every single Friday. Like, the casting was perfect, the movie gave, and I mean, for some reason we really felt the movie because it was really good, and then we ended up getting the show Shadowhunters, whatever that was, and for some reason it managed to go on for so long. I still don't understand how. And it's not even like, and I've watched the show, I watched like 3 seasons, it was not even as half as good as the singular Mortal Instrument movie was. Beautiful Creatures came out next, and I never read the book and I don't remember anything about the movie. I honestly don't even know how it's categorized as paranormal, because I remember watching the movie on Netflix and I was just like, how is this a paranormal movie? They had a terrible country accents. I literally almost turned off the movie like 17 times because the accents were absolutely terrible. I actually don't know what kept me watching the movie, to be honest. Following that, Fallen came out. Now, even though this book did amazing on Goodreads, absolutely plummeted, actually went straight to DVD. And Drink Slay Love was the last to come out. Once again, I don't know why I included this, because I feel like this was not even half as popular as the other ones. It was a really good movie though. It came out on Lifetime in 2017. I really enjoyed it. Like, I really like the actors, and like, it's like a good bad movie. I love bad movies, if you couldn't tell. So like, I personally I kind of liked it. I did read the book, and I can see why the book only has 6,000 reviews compared to the other ones, because 6,000 reviews is really good, but compared to the other ones, which has like hundreds of thousands of reviews and like millions of reviews, compared to other ones, like, it doesn't even do as half as good. And I can kind of see why, because the book was like really weird. I only really included this movie because at the time of writing this script out, it was the only movie that like had came out when it went downhill. I believe it started to go downhill in 2011 because this was also the rise of the dystopian genre, and this was something that basically anyone could watch, because paranormal romances were more so marketed towards girls, and like, nobody was saying that like only girls could watch these movies, but due to toxic masculinity and misogyny, grown-ass men have this habit of making anything that teen girls like be made fun of or seemed as like a problem. And not saying that straight guys actually didn't even like paranormal YA paranormal romances, because they did. Like I have dated a lot of guys, and like, they will always, like, whenever I was telling them I was watching Twilight, they'd be like, oh yeah, I watched that movie with my sister, it's like a pretty good movie, or like things like that. So it's like, it just seemed like they couldn't like it in public, and like, they weren't buying the tickets, obviously. Like, these were movies that they were watching like with their sisters or their moms. Like, they were watching like through like DVD or like renting it on like TV or when it just came on TV, but they weren't the ones buying the tickets, obviously, unless like, you know, they had girlfriends and their girlfriends was like forcing them to watch it. There was a huge gap in 2008 when Twilight came out to 2011 when Beastly came out, and I think that's because nobody seemed like they wanted to be copying Twilight. And also there was like TV shows going on at this time, so like, this is where like the TV shows kind of like entwine. If I was smarter and wanted to take more time into this deep dive, I actually could have like talked about like the TV shows and intertwined it, but I'm lazy and I really am like excited to film this video, so I wanted to get it out. But anyways, so I personally feel like when Twilight came out, a lot of people who liked Twilight, they weren't watching like other vampire shows. You recall from me saying I wasn't a fan of Twilight at this time, so for me, like, I was watching like the Vampire Diaries and Teen Wolf and things like that. But people who are fans of Twilight, anything that had vampires, they viewed as copying Twilight, even though they never really checked into seeing if it really was like Twilight or not. And that's not saying all fans, because I also do know that there were some fans who were consuming a bunch of other vampire stuff because they wanted more of it. And like, obviously there were books and stuff coming out, but nobody was really making the movies. So I think that like, this was the time that teenage girls were like picking up, you know, vampire characters and Mortal Instruments, and like, this is when their reviews started skyrocketing, and then companies were like, okay, we can make money off of this. This can become a thing. Also a huge gap from 2011 to 2014. This is where my theory of like dystopian movies come in, and it's kind of like what I touched on earlier. Dystopians were kind of marketed towards everybody, like teen guys and girls, even though they had like romances in them and stuff. But like, you had like movies like The Maze Runner, or movies that weren't heavily focused on the romance, because like even though the Hunger Games was like, nobody like, I mean, there are people who did ship, you know, Peeta and Katniss, but like their guys could still watch that and be like, ooh, fighting, manly, whatever teenage boys like. And then, you know, you had the Maze Runner, which was more so like, it was written by a male author, more so pushed towards, you know, men. You have like The Giver, things like that. So like dystopians were marketed towards teens as a whole, whereas YA paranormal romances were marketed towards teen girls, and then that goes back into misogyny and making fun of things that teen girls like for some reason. I personally think the fall was due to oversaturation. Once again, I feel like Hollywood doesn't know how to deal with oversaturation, because even in my YA dystopian video, I noticed that it was the same thing. Like there were so many movies coming out at once, and like if you were consuming like a few of these at a time, then yeah. But if you were consuming like all of these, at some point you are gonna get tired. Or not even just you, but teens as a whole will get tired. And like I said, also is due to grown-ass men making fun of whatever things teen girls like. And I feel like this also started like the whole not like other girls movements, where girls start to be like, yeah, Twilight sucks. Like I was even one of those girls. I'm not because I want to be like, I've never been like a not like other girls kind of girl. For some reason Twilight just brought that out in me, because I love the Mortal Instruments and the Vampire Academy and Beastly, and I never really seen Fallen, but like I love the other ones. Now we're going to talk about the actual decline. After 2014, no one was really checking for these movies anymore. Drinks Like Love is proof of that, but also it was a Lifetime movie, so I don't really know how much proof of that it was. And also nobody knew what that movie, I really don't know why I keep putting this movie in this list. It's like in Mean Girls when Gretchen was trying to make Fetch happen and it wasn't happening. Like for some reason it's like I keep trying to make this movie a thing, even though you and I both know that this movie was not a thing. But also this movie, like it could have been a great movie though at the same time. Like the movie came out in 2017. It has some really popular actors like Greg Sokin and Sierra Ramirez, and so it really could have been popular, but I think due to it being a Lifetime movie, I don't think anybody really knew what it was. I just so happened to know because I stalk Greg Sokin's Instagram as though I am really his girlfriend. I think in 2014 most of us really grew out of the genre, but also not really. I just think that publishers stopped publishing YA paranormal romances because the movies were kind of not doing good anymore, so they're probably like, oh, the books aren't doing good, because like people were clearly still reading these. Like paranormal romance is a genre, and like, you know, you still have the Shadowhunter Chronicles, which literally was still going on to this day, because like paranormal romances are actually like back on and popping these days, and they don't really have the same reputation as they used to. And also, like I said earlier, I pretty much think it was due to the oversaturation, because Hollywood was just picking up these books. Like they were just like, okay, let's just come up with the next new thing, and like authors was writing books in hopes that like their books were getting picked up, because you can sometimes read a book and be like, they definitely wrote this because they thought this was going to get turned into a movie, but too bad for them, the genre flopped. Like everything that Hollywood does is like to make money anyway, so because Hollywood was not making any more money from YA dystopians, it just kind of stopped. YA actually declined. So in conclusion, it declined because pretty much anything that teen girls like, grown men and also teen boys make fun of. Nathan Zed actually pointed this out in his video, that like he felt like it was kind of a rite of passage to make fun of these videos, and like he even has made fun of them. And then he actually watched Twilight and he was like, okay, this movie was actually pretty good. And then I thought it was really interesting because I was reading the comments, and the comments has almost 1,000 comments, and I didn't read all of them obviously, but from what I did read, they were mostly guys, and they were mostly guys being like, yeah, I've seen Twilight, it's pretty good. It was just people like hyping up Twilight, or even admitting like, yeah, like we kind of were making fun of it due to teen girls like liking it. But also I think for teen boys, it's just stemmed from like, you know, insecurities and jealousy. So teen boys making fun of it kind of made more sense, because like it kind of reminds me of like, I don't know if anybody was on TikTok when this situation happened, but there's like this thing that happened where Timothée Chalamet had blew up on TikTok. Like this TikTok of him like dancing in like a shirt from the movie Call Me By Your Name had kind of blew up on TikTok. All the girls were eating up this fan edit. The TikTok boys were not having it. They were like extremely jealous, so they started wearing like the same kind of outfit and doing the same kind of dance to get the attention from the girls. So that's what it kind of reminds me of. Like, teen boys were making fun of teen girls because they wanted teen girls attention, and they're probably like, why do you like this fake thing when you could like me? I also think that it also has something to do with the characters itself. Like, every main character was like the same, not like other girls' character, or like a badass character who was like well trained and she didn't have to work and do anything. And I think it just became very bland, and we just wanted people with like personalities. Because even though I do love Twilight, it will be hard to admit that Bella does not have a personality. Like, even in the book, I think that the book actually did Bella justice, because she was a little funny. I cackled a little bit reading the book. Like, she was a little entertaining in the book. But like in the movie, and that's because you're in her head in the book, but in the movie she was like so bland. I was like, damn, where's this girl's personality? The only thing she did was like that weird like breath thing she would do every 5 minutes. And then you have like Clary from the Mortal Instruments, which I never care for Clary, because like what is there to care for? Like, what is her personality? And I feel like what she had going for her was that she had red hair. Girls with red hair could feel like they, you know, felt seen with her. Because like around that time, like books, like the main characters in books didn't really have a lot of personalities. Now you pick up a book and girls do have personalities. Like for me, I liked Vampire Academy and Drinks Lay Love because they both feature like mean girls, kind of. Like Rose isn't, like in the Vampire Academy, Rose isn't a mean girl, but she's definitely different from like the main character. And like I love Rose because like reading the Vampire Academy, like you would think it would be about Lisa, like the blonde haired pretty girl who is the vampire. She's like a very powerful vampire and all this stuff, but you actually follow Rose, who is like half vampire. She's the protector of Lisa. Like theoretically you would go into this book thinking that she's a main character, and that's what I love about Rose. And then you have like Drinks Lay Love, where like the main character was just like such a bitch, and I love a good mean girl. And like I love a story following a mean girl, kind of like Emma by Jane Austen. I love that book so much. Like Emma isn't a mean girl, but she's not the typical like YA, she's not the typical like protagonist. Lastly, I believe some movies just failed because of its timing, like Vampire Academy and the Mortal Instruments. I just think that the Mortal Instruments came out like between a weird time. Vampire Academy, I think, also came out at a weird time, because if we go back to the girls who like towards Twilight fans, they probably saw Vampire Academy and was like, this is a copy of Twilight, I don't want to watch that. Even though it had like, they're not even like kind of sort of similar, but that's it, just at least what I think. I think that, and I don't know what about Vampire Academy is bad. Like I've watched that movie so many times, I'm like, what about this is bad? Now the Mortal Instruments, I could tell you what was bad about that. Like the whole ending, like the whole incest plot line was very questionable. There were some things that happened in this movie that was just like, what? But like the vampire, okay, I guess Vampire Academy has its problematic things too, like, you know, her falling in love with her trainer, but they're vampires. It's different. This is not me trying to reasoning my ships here. This is a video essay. So lastly, we're going to get into the resurrection of the genre. Recently, vampires have came back into style. I think because YA paranormal has, like with authors like Holly Black, Sarah J Maas, Cassandra Clare, who never stopped writing Shadowhunter Chronicles, people saw that fairies were popular, or like fae, which is, you know, fairies. And I think that encouraged other authors to come back with vampires, and people are probably like, wait a minute, why did vampires ever die down? And that's why we have books now like Crave from Blood and Ash, Beautiful, and Zodiac Academy. Because like when Holly Black came out with The Cruel Prince, I really think it changed the world. And I mean, Sarah J Maas had already been writing about fairies with her Court of Thorns and Roses books, and so like I think that was like the rise of fairies also brought back like the like resurrection of paranormal romances, because then people were writing like, because fairies are technically paranormal, so then authors was like, okay, well let's bring back vampires and things like that. I wonder if like they'll bring back angels. I actually kind of want to do a video essay on the rise of fairies, so if you want to see that, let me know, because I personally like to think of myself as a fairy and base my life off of pretending to be one. So if there's no one who knows more about fairies, it's me. But we also have an influx of new adult paranormal romances. I think authors realize with like the fae books that we never stopped liking paranormal books, or it never stopped really coming out, just got more popular, or they're getting more popular. Plus, I'm not a teen girl anymore, and neither are most of the people who grew up watching like Twilight and all the other paranormal YA romances. Grown men and misogyny as a whole cannot shame me into not liking these things. And even though the books I listed, like Crave, Zodiac Academy, From Blood and Ash, and The Beautiful, even though some of those titles are new adult, just because we're making room for new adult, obviously there are always going to be YA authors. There's always going to be the YA genre. So if the rise of paranormal and new adult is happening, then the rise of paranormal and YA is also happening. Plus, like I said, Crave is a YA and The Beautiful is a YA. And I remember when The Beautiful came out and everybody was like, oh my gosh, yes, finally. And then Serpent and Dove was like YA, and that was like witches, and like everybody was like, oh my gosh, yes, like, you know, like everyone was hyping it up. And like now we have like books and graphic novels featuring queer like vampires and paranormal things. So now we have queer paranormal romances. So the genre is just growing again as a whole. And then also you could see with like teen shows, paranormal romances is never gonna stop with like teen shows, because you have shows like First Kill that just came out, and then Julie and the Phantoms, rest in peace. And like that shows me that like there are always gonna be like vampires and witches and werewolves and like TV. And I'm very interested to see like what Hollywood does with it, and if we'll see like any book adaptations on the big screen or anything like that. I mean, Hollywood is money hungry, so if we start like really hyping up these books, I could see some of them becoming movies very soon. That was very long-winded. So yes, thank you for watching this video. Be sure to check out my channel membership. You can join for $4.99 by pressing the join button. It should be under the subscribe button, but if you're not subscribed, then subscribe and then join. And it really helps out me and my channel. It's basically like Patreon, but like through YouTube. And I upload like TBRs, like special videos. I upload videos early. I just post on there. I literally just talk on there. But yeah, thank you for watching this video. I do want to do more of these. Obviously, I have a whole series planned out. So if you want to see the Rise of Fairy one, please let me know. And then also, some of them aren't even just focused on like specific, like, even though it's a look into the genre, some of them aren't just focused on like the actual genre. Like I have some focused on like tropes and things like that. So I am gonna still do more. I was just a little discouraged because my previous video didn't do as good as I thought it would, but I really love video essays and I really love filming video essays, so I'm definitely going to be doing more of these. Even if it's just 4 people watching and 4 of them are me, that's totally fine. So be sure to let me know like which one you want to check out, and let me know why a paranormal romance brand. I would like to know. Mine was a TV show, so mine was definitely Teen Wolf and My Baby Sister's a Vampire. But yeah, thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.